All right. Today is going to be our second class for JavaScript, and we've already talked about what is JavaScript, what can it do for you, how do you add it to your page, and at the same time, we started with these basic constructs. And under our basic constructs, we're able to talk about the types that we have in JavaScript, like the number, the string, what is Boolean, what is null and undefined. Again, we've talked about variable, how you can create a variable, initialize or assign a variable. We talked about part of this operator, but we only touched part of it. We touched the arithmetic and the relational operator, where we check whether a particular value is greater than the other or they are equal, or you want to add the numbers together. And again, um, we talked about different ways that this your plus operator used to work based on the value you are using with it. But today we're going to be talking about branching. I'm going to skip the looping part. We talked about the branching, then after that we'll move into function, and if there is time we'll move into array, because these are the things you are going to be using later on to communicate, or the way things are arranged on the page, they are coming through this array or this object, and we use function to kind of carry out actions on those items. Like all these text you are seeing on the page here, they are being represented by something. What are they using to represent them? So it can come through this object, or just normal array if there are multiple values, like there are multiple items, that's where the array comes in, like that. But once we talk about array, you're able to understand the object too, because array is just an object, but it's a special kind of object, like that. So branching, just like the way I mentioned last time, when you're working on your page, there's some stuff that needs to happen based on a particular condition. So you don't want this thing to just do something for you, or everything that you have in your code. Not all of them are going to run, or not everything that the user is going to see. So some of them are only going to show when something happened on the page. So you need to be able to condition your content based on whatever you want the user to carry out on the page. For example, you have the login page and you have the dashboard. But you know, the dashboard, you usually want to show things to the user when they are logged in. When they are not logged in, you want to show another thing. So this branching make it possible for us to be able to check whether a particular condition is met before you carry out the action that you want to do, or whatever you want to show to the user there. And under the branching, we have this if statements. We have the if else, we have the if else ladder, and at the same time we have the switch. But the one that you're going to be using most of the time are these two. So later on, when we need the other one, I'm going to bring them, because here we're only talking about the basic construct, not that we want to talk about everything. We just want to pick all the key one, then any other one that needs to come in later on can come in when we need them, like that. But for now, we talked about the basic one, and later on we talked about the one that we don't need now. So, and how does this thing work? So let me go back into the code. There, these are the stuff we've done already. So let me just go down again to the keyword. We've talked about it, the logical operator. I've not talked about the logical operator, is assignment, but I will come back into that one later on. So let's just talk about the if statement and if else statement, like that, because this thing make it possible for us to kind of do something based on the condition that you want to set. And this is how it works, like that. So we have the if, like this, and you are going to have your condition here. Then after it, you are going to have the statement is what you want this thing to do for you, like action. So you want something to happen, but is depending on this condition. So if the condition is okay, then perform this. But if the condition is not okay, then nothing will happen on the screen, like that. So if the button is click, you want to show something somewhere. But if the button is not click, you don't want that thing to show. It's only when the button is click that that thing is going to show. But when it's not click, then nothing will happen, like that. So, and the other one that we have is this if condition, because just like what we mentioned here, is only when the condition is true that is going to do this. But what if the condition is not true and you want to do something else? So that's where the second one comes in. So with this, now you have the condition, then you're going to have your statement like that. But else, then you're going to have statement 2 like this. So what does this mean? When your condition is true, it will only perform the statement 1. It will not do anything like statement 2. But if the condition is false, it will not do statement 1, it will now perform statement 2. So not the two of them, only one of them is going to happen, not the two. So depending on this condition, is going to pick the corresponding statement. So if the condition is true, you are going with statement 1. But if the condition is not true, then you are going with statement 2. But with this one means you don't even have any alternative. Once this thing is not there, then we are not doing anything, or we are not showing anything on the screen. But with this, if you are not logged in, or if you are logged in, show the dashboard. But if you are not logged in, then show the login. So you can think of this statement 2 is state, because you are giving a statement, do this when this condition is okay. Then when the condition is not okay, then do another stuff like yes. So and you can use it anywhere on the page to just make sure that something happen based on the condition that you have. So this is just the basic stuff about them like that. For example, we have this const age, assuming we put the age to be 12. Here we can just say if age now is yeah, so look at it here now. Assuming we have a variable age, which is having this value 12. So we want to display something to the screen that, oh, you are eligible to vote or you are not eligible to. There's a condition there now. So if, for you to be able to vote now, you have to be 18 and above, like that. And that's what we need to put. So your condition here now, whatever you want to test, is going to be inside the bracket. And we have different ways of presenting the condition. One of them is this operator that we're using right now to check whether it's greater or equal to a particular value. And we know we have the operator for that. So when you're checking for greater, this is the operator like that. I did not send you. Let me disable this AI because I don't want it to be showing what I don't want. Okay, so here now, or it can be greater because the two of them together like that. Or you can just say greater than 17 if you don't want to include, at this point now, it's going to look at 18 and above. But if you don't want to do it like that, you can just do it in this way. And that's the reason why I mentioned that you can represent your condition in different ways. But that thing have to either be true or false. Whatever you want to put there must return true or false. And JavaScript is actually crazy. Anytime you're using anything that is not related to true or false as your condition, it used to convert them, like it to convert them to true or false. And JavaScript have the rules it follows to convert value. So you need to know some of these basic stuff that we call true to value, and we have something known as a falsy value. So we have falsy values. So what this means is that anytime you use any of these value as a Boolean value, this is what they are going to return. They will return false by default. So when you use 0, anywhere you are dealing with condition, anywhere you are using something that needs to return true or false, if what is in there is 0, that thing is just false. False value just means all these things, they are going to return false. So you get into empty string like this, is going to return false. But this one is not going to return false. So this one, you can see something is inside. So the difference, this is empty, but this one is not empty because that space 2 is characterized. So it's going to count it as true. So this one is going to treat it as false. So it's going to treat, anywhere you use this null in here, it's going to treat it as false. If you use undefined, it's going to treat it as false. That NaN that I showed you before is going to treat it as false. False too is going to treat it as false. So any other value that is not in this place, they are known as the true to value or like that. So they are known as this value. So every other thing that is not here, just know that they will return true when you use them as a condition. So for example, here now, if I pass them into Boolean, because this is what we can use to convert any value to Boolean. Boolean is just true or false. So here now, if I just pass empty string, as you can see, it's going to be false. So if I pass 0 there like that, you see that it's false because 0 empty string null, undefined, all of them, they are going to be false. But if you pass any other thing that is not those value, it will return true. So which means anytime you are testing your condition and whatever you are getting here, even if it's not something that can give you true or false, just look at the value. Is it part of what is there? If it is part, that means it's false. But if it's not part, then that is true. Just know that your condition is true at that point. And what do you want to do here? What we just want to, this is our statement now. We just want to log out. You can vote. So this is a statement. So whatever you want to do is what is going to be here. So if I save it right now, you're not going to see anything coming out. Why? Because our condition is not true. The age is 12, but we are asking whether that age is greater or equals to 18. So that's the only time we want this thing to happen. If you are not, then there's no need for you doing anything on our side because it's 18 and above, not below. So this thing have to be added in order for the user that are below not to see what you don't want them to see. No, you can't just know that, oh, this person is age, whatever stuff. And you only want them to be able to do this when a particular condition is met, like that. But now if I change this into 121 and save it, you see now we can see the message because the age is actually greater because this thing is now returning true. And since it's true, then it's going to perform what you have here. But if you notice what just happened now, if it is not true, nothing is happening. But if it is true, something is happening. But what if you want to do something else? Because you need to kind of inform them too. Oh, since you cannot afford, let us tell you that this is the reason why you are not seeing all this. That's where this one now comes in. And again, to the statement that I put here, you can see that it's just one statement, but it can actually be more than one statement that you want to show. So if it is more than one statement, then it have to be like this. So if it is more than one statement that you want to do, then you have to put the statement inside the bracket like this. So that's how it's going to know that everything that is inside the bracket, they are related to this if. But if it is one, you don't need to put bracket. You can put it or you can leave it. But you always see me putting the bracket, whether it is one or multiple statement that we need to do like that. But if you want, you can just leave it like this. But the only thing that follows it, the first thing that follows it, that's the only thing it's going to do. This one now, it will not count as part of the statement for that if. So this one will always work. So it doesn't care whether this thing is true or not, it will always work. Why? Because when you don't have brackets, the first thing that follows it, that's the only statement is going to undo when the statement is true. But when the statement is not true, then it will not do that. But this one, it will only perform it whether you are there or not. Let me remove this one so that that error is not showing again. So if you look at it now, as you can see, the two of them is showing because the age is this. But now if I reduce it and save it, you see that always work. So it doesn't care about this one. The only thing it care about is the first statement that follows it. But if you know that the two of them supposed to be part of that if, then you need to put them in the curly brace. So now this thing knows that everything that is in between these curly braces are part of this statement. So if you save it now, it will not work because you've seen it as part. So if you have multiple statements, always put them in brackets in this curly brace. But if it's just one, you can put it on one line. But me, I always use it, whether we have only one condition or not, or whether you have one statement or not. I always use it so that it's to be clearer that okay, these are the stuff that this thing is going to do. But you can actually do it like this. It will work, but not the way you're expecting it to work. This last one will not be part of it. The only thing it will just do is this one. And that's this one you see that my editor is formatting it, moving this one up, while this one is down. And I can see that this thing is not shifted inside. It is on the same line. So which is telling you that this one is not part of this line. But if you want it to be part, then you have to use the curly brace there like that. So whatever you have under this curly brace, they are part of the condition. So they are part of the statement. So this thing will only run when this condition is true. If the condition is not true, then it is not going to work. But now that the age is greater, then you see that the two statements now are coming out. But what if you want to do something when it is false? So we can use this one down here. The same thing too here. When you want to work with one statement, you don't need to put curly brace. But if each one of them here have to, work with multiple statements, you have to put the curly brace. But I always put it there. So here now, let's put our age again at the top. So const age, like this should be 2. And the reason I'm using const is because I don't want to change it after that line. If it is let now, you can change it after the line. So we talked about all this in before when we are declaring our variable. I told you that when you use let, it allows you to change the value later on. But when you are using const, you have to give it value and you cannot change it after that line. When you are dealing with all the simple value, when we get to object and array, it will not be like that. It will still like that, but just that the way those one works, it's quite complex because it's combining multiple stuff together. But for now, const, you cannot change whatever you've already assigned to it with this sign. Once you use this sign, you cannot change the stuff again after that line. And since I'm not going to be changing it after that line, that's why I'm using const like that. If you want, you can use let, it will still work. Just that it's just waste of this thing because you know that you don't want to change it later on. So you use const. Or you can still use let, it will still work. So here now, if age is greater or equals to n, saying like this, what do we want to do? We want to do something. So this is going to be, you can vote like that. Then after that, we can just say s. So that means this condition is not being met. So we want to do something else. So here we can just say, sorry, you are too young, like that. So this one or this one, not the two. Only one of them is going to come outside, not the two. And which one is depending on your condition here. So if the condition is true, it will do everything before the s. Then if the condition is false, it will only do everything inside the s. That's how it works. And I've mentioned different places you can use all this in. When the user is logging, do this. When it's not logging, do that. So when the button text is this, change something somewhere. But when the button is not like that, change it to another thing, or don't even do anything at all, depending on what you want to do. And once I save this one now, you see that we have, sorry, you are too young, like that. But if the condition is met, for example, here I put 20 here, so say we are going to see that it will perform the first one and not the second one, like that. But what if you have multiple conditions to be like you want to test multiple conditions? That's where the other one that I mentioned will come in later on, which is the if else ladder. So what if you want to check, maybe imagine you have a user, you have different type of user in your system. You have the admin, then you have the editor, and at the same time you don't have any user at all. You can't, because the user logged in, you can't just say the user is admin or the user is editor. You have to check. So if the user is not logging, you know that you are going to show login. But if they are logging, you need to check two things again. You need to check whether they are editor or whether they are admin. So that's where the other one now comes in, where you'll be doing something like else if now. So this one now allows you to kind of add other condition before s. So this one is used before the s. You have to use it before the s, like that. So this one, as you can see, yeah, you want to check something again. So the way this one works is that it will check, is this one okay? If it is okay, then it will perform this, then forget the rest. That's like, it's only one, not that it will pick two from it. It's only one. The first one it can find that is okay. That's what to do. But if this one is not okay, then it will now check this second condition. Not before, it's not doing any condition again. It will just go straight to S. But this one now, if this one is not okay, then check this one here. Then if it is okay, it will do this, then abandon the one that follows it too. And you can have multiple of this one. That's why we call it ladder, because you can have multiple of this one. So check this. If it's not okay, check this. If it's not okay, and then it will keep doing like that until it gets to the S. But if this one is okay, then nothing else will work. It will only work on the one on line 91. Yes, it has to be before the S, because S is the last, like none of this one is met. Like this condition here, we can't find any one of them. So this is the last that we can get to, like that. So S have to be the last on the list. But this one right now, we don't really need it. Majorly, these are the one you'll be using a lot, but it gets some time that This one comes in like that, that you have to, check multiple conditions, but they are connected. There are multiple conditions, but they are connected. That's when you'll be doing this. But if they are not connected, don't use it. So, because, no, don't forget, usually one of them is going to do, not two. So even if there are multiple conditions here that are okay, the first one it can find, that's the only one it's going to do. It will not, like for example, now assuming this condition here, assuming this one now is true, and this one here too is true, and this one is false. So if this one is false and this one is true, it will do this, forget the remaining one. Only one. Once you see one of them that is true, even if it is first one that you can say that it is true, or this one, nothing. Because that's how it works. They are connected. It will look for the first one, like starting from the starting point here, check, is it okay? If it is okay, it will not even do all this one at all. So it will just do what you have here. How is it connected? Because they are connected. That's what I'm saying, how it works. Let me put sample here so that you see the stuff. For example, here now, let's do this. So consider age to be 5, like this. So if age like this now is if age is greater than let's just say 5, and so this is the logical condition I was talking about that time, but I will explain how it works. And age now is less or equals to 10. So we want to do something at this point. So what do we want to do to console log? We just want to say that, or let's just say between 5 and 10, like that. So else if, because I need to test another condition. So age is greater than 10 and age is less or equals to 17, like that. So we just want to output young, like that. Else if age is greater than or equal to 18, like this. So we want to do something else. We just want to put r dots like that, or this one save. Let me just do when it is less than 10 for this one. So let's just do when age is less or equals to 10, and this one when age so let's just say when, so that you can see it in action. So when age is less than 18, like that, or let's just say less or equals to 17, like that. So as we don't know, in case maybe we did not reach, which we know that we will never reach here, like that. Then we can just say we don't know right now, but it will never get here because one of them here is going to pick the stuff. So here we have age is 5. So what do? You start from the starting point. So is age less than, or is age, is it less than 10? Is it less or equals to 10? Yes. Look at the age. Age is what? 5. So is it less than 10? Yes. So since it's yes, that means everything here is true. And since it's true, that means it's going to perform warrior. But if you still look at the next one that follows, you see that that one too is still true. But if once I save it now, you see that he's only doing one of them. He's not doing that next one. Because the first one it can find that is true, that's what it's going to do. Even if the other one too are true, it doesn't care. It will only stop at that point where it finds the value. But now if I change this in now to let's just change it to 51. The same thing here too. Is 51 less or equals to 10? That's no. Again, it will go to the next one. Is it less or equals to this one? No. So since it's not, the next one, is it greater or equals to 18? Yes. So once I save it now, you see that it will pick this adult. The same thing too if I use maybe like 13 now. Is 13 less or equals to this one? Is it less or equals to this? No, it's no. Because there is no way 13 will be less or equals to 10. So since it's not, that means this one is false. So since it's false, it will go to the next condition. So this next condition here now, it is true. And since it's true, then it's going to perform this young. Even if there is any other one that is here, it will not do it at all, like that. For example, if I put this one maybe 15, and after this, I'm putting, let's just put this one here. So let me put this one here. So let's just put this one. So let's just put 17 here. If you look at it, 13 is less than 15, and at the same time it's less than this. Let me just put young 2 so that we know that it's different, and this is young 1. So if I save it here, you see that the only thing that is going to come outside is young 1, because it's seen this one already. So since it's seen this one, it will not do anything after it. Once it can find one of them, any other one that follows it, nothing will happen. And that's why I said they are connected. Even though you are doing multiple conditions, they are still connected. If you don't want them like that, then you have to do each one of them separately. Do one of the if like this, again, another if, then another if, and so forth like that. So this one now, they are not connected. But once you use this else if or else there, it's connected to the if that comes before it. So with this one now, they are not related. Even if the condition are okay, or if the condition are true, it will do this, it will do this, it will do this separately, because they are not joined together. In order for them to be joined together, you either use this else if or this s with your if. Then it will be. But once it's if, each if are not connected to each other like that, and that's how this thing works, because it's very important later on when we want to be doing things on the page. You want to get element, but at some time that element might not be on the screen, or you want to add something if it is not there, and if it is there you want to remove it. So you need to use this if to check whether it is there. So if it is there, you know what, you perform the statement that is going to remove it. But if it is not there, then you perform the statement that is going to add to the page. So this is what we are going to be using later on to do all these things. Before I now move into these functions. So what are functions? Functions are reusable block of code that you join together to perform a specific task. Just like what we mentioned now, we want to add something to a page if it is not there before, or remove it if it is there. No, the action that you want to carry out to add something on the page is not just one action. First thing, locate the element. Then when you locate the element, then if it is there, we want you to just change the text. But if it's not there, we want you to create it first. Then after creating it, we want you to update the text. So these are series of action, and this series of action here now, you want to do it multiple times in different places, and you don't want to write all this code again and again and again. So you can join under them, you can join all of them together under a single name, and anytime you need it, you just call that name. The same thing here too. Yeah, kind of about that. This is, we are not in the programming world. So just like this log that I've been using since, how does log know that he's supposed to put the messages? It's because there's some series of command behind the scene that have been passing to it, that you only just receive what they want to print, then this is where you are going to put the stuff. So we can create something like this. We just have a single name, but there's a series of stuff that is going to be happening behind the scene like that. And a lot of them that we have already were, for example, if I put a text now, if I use these dots, as you can see, I can use this at. And what does this at do? This is a method, but method is still the same thing as function. But the difference between them is that methods are defined on object, while functions stand alone. So when you say method, it's still function, but it's been logging to objects. But when you now say normal, when enter you call function, it's standing on its own, it's not belonging to any object. But when you now say object, when you say that method, that one is a function that is belonging to object. Function stand alone, while object, while method are function that define on the object. And that's why you see that this at now, I can't just use it anyhow. It must come from the string, because it's part of the string object like that. And how do you access method? Once we get there, all these dots that I'm using here, I'm going to explain it better at that point. So if I put 5 here now, or if let me just put 1, as you can see what is returning. How does it know that it's supposed to return this E? It's because there is some series of questions, series of action behind the scene that have been embedded into this at. So anytime you call it, it will now carry out all those actions and return back the results to you. So this one now is already been defined for us by JavaScript. But how do you create your own function too in JavaScript? How do you create your own function, or how do you create your own method? But we are only going to focus on function, When we get to the object, you are going to see how to define method, but it still follow the same thing that you'll be doing with your function, because method are just functions that are defined on object. And how do you access method? Anything that comes after the dot, any function that comes after the dot, they are referred to as method, because they are coming from the that something must be on the left before you can access them. But when you're talking about normal function, you don't need the name, the art here is the name of, we are going to get that because we've not really talked about it, so that's why it's like that. But let me get into it so that you know all the part of function like that. So we have functions like this. So when you're dealing with functions, you need to be able to define it. So we should be able to define function. That means you want to talk to JavaScript that this is what this function is all about. Anytime it's being called, these are the stuff is going to carry out. But when is it going to be used? So when you want to use it, we have something called function call. Function call is you are calling the function to come and perform everything that has already been defined inside that function. When you are defining it, it's just like variable. When you are defining it, it will not do anything. The only time it to perform all those actions is when you call the function. And how do you call the function? You are going to see it there. How do you define function? You are going to see it here. So for example here, we have different ways of defining a function, but this is just the simplest and the old way of doing it. So every function, we start with this function keyword. By now you know what is keyword. Something that JavaScript have a defined name, a defined action for, and you cannot change it. So when you want to create a function, it must start with this. When you're dealing with traditional function, and again, you cannot use this in anywhere else. This is the place you can use it because it's a keyword. So, and the next thing that follows it, just like your variable, is the function name. Whatever name you want to give your function, that one is coming from you. This one is not coming from you. You have to type it like that. But this one will be coming from you. So you give it whatever name. Just like as you can see this one now, the name is art. So this one is named art. So when you want to call your function later on, this is the name you are going to be using to call it. So it's very important. And again, too, it follows the same pattern of that variable naming. So you can use Pascal case, you can use snake case, but you know in JavaScript, I told you that we are going to be following this camel case. So for your function name, we are going to be using camel case. For your variable name too, we are going to be using camel case. But these are different. This one will not work in JavaScript. This one only work in HTML like that. So let's go down. So to define a function, we are going to start with this function keyword, followed by the name of the function, then followed by this bracket, and followed by this curly brace. And inside this curly brace, this is where you are going to put all the statements, that means the action that this function is going to carry out later on when it is called. So when this function is called, everything that you put inside this curly brace is what is going to do for you. So to define a function, start with the function keyword, followed by the name of the function, then followed by the bracket, because that's how it's going to say know that this is a function. Then inside it, curly brace, you are going to put the statement that you want this your function to perform for you like that. For example, we have function add. So I'm what?
After the function, you say the function name.
Yes.
What will you display?
Yes.
So inside the bracket in front of it, that's where you put.
Not inside. Look at it. Oh, this is it. Function.
Okay, function.
The name.
Then what you want to
What you want to name it. Look at it now. As you can see, I'm naming my own. The function name here is now add. Then after it, you have this bracket there. Then inside this curly brace, that's where you put everything you want the function to do. And what is it going to do? Its job is just to add with this welcome to add function like this. Then after that, no, it can be series of actions. So it's going to perform all of them. So I will be adding 2 plus 2. Then after that, then console log again, it will now be 2 plus 2 like that. So this function is going to, anytime you call it, is going to carry out these 3 statements, or is going to perform these 3 statements every time you call it. Like anytime you call this stuff, is going to carry out these actions that you have there. So this art that you have here has been defined somewhere by JavaScript, and anytime you call it, its job is just to look at this text and pick the one that follows under that index. Once we get to array, you understand what is index. So that's why I'm not talking about that one for now. What is index? You're going to know what is that when we get to array. So now how do you call the function? Because right now if I save it, you see that nothing will happen because we only define the function. So the function don't just call itself. You have to talk to that function. Okay, come and perform the action that was defined inside this. And to call a function, so to call a function, you are going to start with a function name like that, then followed by this. It's just like the way the difference is that you don't add function keyword again when you are calling it. When you are defining it, it must start with this function. But when you are calling it, just the name and the bracket. There is nothing like curly brace again because right now you are not telling it to, you are not giving it definition again. You are just calling it to perform what you want it to do. So for example, here now that our function at the top now, we can call it. And once it's called, as you can see, it will perform everything that is under it. What the advantage of this? The advantage is I can recall it multiple times like this. And as you can see, it will keep doing that same thing. You can see that I don't need to repeat this line. And again, another advantage is that if I want to modify anything now, this is where I will just do it. Because all of them, they are coming here to perform the action. So instead of it to be welcome to add function like this, it's just going to be welcome to add calculator like this. And once I save this in now, you see that all of them will doing the same thing because it's still the same function, but we can call it multiple times. So you can call it again and again and again anytime you need it. And anytime you need to make changes, you just go to where you define it and you make your changes there. So and whenever you are using it, all of them, because they don't just like just because we put them here doesn't mean that's the end. If you make changes here, it will not change. It will still change because anytime you call a function, it will go to where you define it and start performing everything that is on it. So once this get here, once JavaScript get here, oh, this is a function. So it will look for where you define this function, which you can find it. Then it will go back there and it start doing all this thing. And that's why you see that. Can you see? This is where we call it. But look at where he said it's performing the action. He said it's performing the action from line 129, 130, and 131. As you can see here, 129, 130, 131. Even though we call it on line 137. That's not where, so it will go back to where you define and start carrying out all those actions, not just performing the stuff on the line you call. This is where you are telling it to start doing that action, but it needs to go back and start doing everything on this line. This is where we are calling it, but this is where it's going to carry out the action. Yeah, class. Well, don't use HTML this thing to just follow his own this thing. So this one is a way of you grouping different statements. As you can see, this is one statement, this is another one, this, or let's just call it action, but normally it's a statement. Statement is action that you're carrying out there like that. So you want something to happen, but there are a series of things that you want to do. But those series of things, you still need to redo it again and again and again in different places. But you don't want to start calling them one by one again. So you now group them like this. So you are now grouping them in a name. So anytime you now want to do that stuff, you just call the name. But to call is like this, not just the name alone. You have to put a bracket. And to group them, you have to do it like this. So to create your function is like this, and to call it is like this. And there's a lot of function already in JavaScript that you can use. One of them, I've used it before, for example, like this, confirm here. As you can see, so but look at this one, and this one is expecting something. I'm going to talk about this kind of a function. Now our own, we are not passing anything, but this one now is expecting me to pass something, which is the message that you want to ask. So what do you want like this? So once I save it and go back to the page, can you see now that? So you see that the function, so because behind the scene, that confirm all the series of action is going to perform has been, but you don't need to create it. You can see that it's working. If something that is part of the JavaScript already, just call it. It will work. But if it's not part of JavaScript and you try to call it, it will cause error. For example, now if I just say the times like this, and if I just call it, there is nothing like times function. I did not define times function, and JavaScript 2 did not have times function. So it will look for it because anytime you call a function, it will look for where it's defined. And how does it look for it? It will check it in your file first. Is it here? So if it's not here, it will go and check it in the JavaScript there. If you cannot find it there too, then the next thing you see is error that it can't perform what you are calling. As you can see here, reference error. times is not defined. So first, you have to define the function. If you don't define the function and you are calling it, this is what you get. But if it's part of JavaScript, you don't need to define it because it has been defined already. You only just call it and it's going to carry out the action that it needs to perform for you. But if you look at it here now, you see that some of our function here, or some of the JavaScript function here, you need to pass something inside it. And it will be working based on what you pass in. The same thing here too. We can do something like that for this our add. As you can see right now, it's adding 2 plus 2. But what if I don't want to be adding 2 plus 2? I want to pass what is going to add together. So there's some function that you need to tell them what data they need to work on. They know what to do, but they need to act upon a particular set of data. So how do you now pass that data in? So we pass the data through this your bracket here. And whatever you be passing here, when you are creating your function, we call it parameters. So let me move down and put it down here. So here we have a function parameters here, or sometimes in some programming language, you see them calling it arguments like that. So some programming language are going to call it argument, but the difference between arguments and parameters. We used to mix them together, but they have subtle difference. So like that. So when you're talking about parameter, you have your function name like this. Then whatever you are passing when you are defining your function, that's what we call parameters like this. And you're going to have a lot of them, because if it's so, this is going to be parameter 1. If there are multiple parameters you want to receive, then you separate them by comma like that. So we have parameter 2, we have parameter 3, and so forth like that. What was this? So parameter 2 like this. Let me make this into go to next line. View. See, let me expand it first so that it will be easier to do. View word wrap, so that it can move it soon to the next line. Yeah. So yeah, just like the way we have it before. So statement. The only thing we are just adding are these parameters. So parameters is this. So how does it work when you're not calling a function? You are going to call your function like this. So function, no, you're going to call it function name like this. So what you're now passing here is what we call arguments. So argument 1, argument 2, depending on the number of parameter you have. So argument 3 like this. Now this is where you call the function. This is where you define the function. So what you are using, so this here now, this parameter are what you are using to represent some of the value that you are going to be receiving later on when you are calling the function. Look at this confirm now. So this stuff that I pass here is my argument, but this confirm is receiving it through parameter. When this thing is being defined, is receiving this thing through parameter. But what I'm sending is what we call argument. But if you want, you can call this one parameter, you can call it argument. And this one too, you can call it parameter, you can call it argument. But there's a subtle difference between them. What you are sending to the function call is argument. What you are using to receive it when you are defining the function is what we call parameter. But you can use the two words to reference the same thing like that. So how does this thing work? Your function want to work on some data, but no, the time you are defining it, that's not the time you are calling it. So the data will be coming in later on. So you use parameter to receive what the user will be using later on to call the function. Then once they pass it, when the function is being called, everything will be sent down to your, as you can see here, argument 1 will go to parameter 1. The way you arrange it here, that's the same way to be sending value. So the first one will always go to the first one, the second one will always go to the second one, the third one will always go to the third one, and so forth like that. If this thing is expecting one stuff and you send 2, it will only take that one, the first one. The remaining one is to throw it away because it's not expecting it for you. Assuming it's Python now, if you send more than what it's expecting, you even get error. But JavaScript will not give you any error at all. it will only pick what it needs from it, and the remaining one, pew, just leave it. But Python will not, it will tell you that it's expecting 2, but you are sending 3, or it's expecting 3, and you are sending 2. You have to send the number of this thing is expecting from you. But yeah, you don't care. Anyone you don't send and we're expecting it, it will be undefined. But if the one that we are not expecting and you are setting it, we are just going to, trade it because we are not expecting it at all. Yeah. So for example, here we have the same that function now. So let's redefine it again. Down here. So we're going to have the function add, but now it's going to receive the num1. So and right now, my parameter, as you can see, I'm calling it num1. It's just like a variable. Your parameter that you have here, you can name it anything you want, but it will only available inside this function. Once you leave the function, they are not available again because they are part. So again, num2. I'm the one calling them num1, num2. You can call it x, you can call it y. You are just using it to represent what this function is going to be receiving later on when it's being called. So you can now be using this num1 and num2 here. So for example, here too, can continue the way we have it before. So let me just copy everything that we have here like that. You see the same thing. The only thing we are just changing is what we have here like that. So let me just paste everything back. I don't need to be typing it again. So paste. So again, I'm not going to be putting this one for now here like that. So what we just do here, instead of 2 plus 2, it will now be num1 plus num2. So which means anytime you call this function and you send the value for num1 and you send value for num2, so whatever value you send will now replace, or this one you can think of them as just dummy, like a placeholder representing what will be sent later on when the function is called. So here now we can now call our function by just add 2 plus 3 like that. Again, I can call the function again. This one is going to be 100. No, something is wrong here. Not plus. So comma like this. So this one is going to be 100. Then this is going to be 500. You can see the same function, but we are sending different value. Can you see that we are reusing all the logic here, but it's working on different data? So now once this thing is saved, you see that, can you see the first one, it is 5, while the second one is 600. Anytime your function is called, what it will do is that it will come back here, but it sees that the function needs to receive 2 things. So what are the things? So whatever you send here, so 2 now, we go to num1, then 3, we now go to num2. The way you arrange it here, because if you change the order, that's the same way it's going to. So now if I change it to 3, 2, now num1 is 3 and num2 is 2. And if it is like this, then num1 is 2, while num2 is 3. So the way you pass it there, that same way is going to be sending it to the function call when the function is being run like that. So now the first one, it carry out the action here. Again, 2, I can call it again by putting -2 and putting 10 like that. So once I say, as you can see, we get it correct because -2 plus 10, that's, you are removing 2 from it. And at the same time too, don't forget, -10 and 2, they are not the same thing. So once this thing is saved, as you can see, that the answer is different because the way you arrange it here, that same way is going to send it. So which means -10 is that num1 and 2 num2, and that's what is we using here. So this one will now be -10 plus 2. That first one, it will be -2 and plus 10. So that's what is going not. So that's what is going on there like that. So this is just the basic stuff about function. This one is our own. We are creating our own function, but there's a lot of function in JavaScript that you can use. And again, later on, most of the time, you have to create a function to group related action together that you know that you want to recall again and again like that. All right, so that's what I'm going to stop about function, but that's not all. Here now I'll be moving into something that is very, very important, which is this array, because we are going to be using it. This is a lot. A lot of things you have on the page, they are always in group. So, and how do you group them together in a single name? No, your element on the page, how do you group them together in a single name? That's where array comes in. So you can think of array as like you are creating a variable, but that variable is not holding single value, it's holding multiple values at the same time. So array allows you to group multiple values into a single name. So on the page, as you can see here, I have different airline. So what if I want to group all of them together in a single variable name? So this thing, I will just use array. And again, to the way you select them from the page later on, when we get to the term, they always come in a form of group because there are multiple things you are selecting at the same time. Since you are selecting them multiple things at the same time, they will come as a group. And how is this thing going to represent them? It will use what we refer to as this array. Even though it might be a subset of array, but it's still array logic that you are going to be using at that side. And how do we represent array? So as you can see on the screen, should be able to create array. We should be able to access array element. So the reason it is array element is because it's holding multiple things. So which means it's not going to be giving you one by one. You have to talk to it that this is the one I need inside that list. And again, too, you should be able to update a particular value there, not all of them are like that because it's holding multiple things. You should be able to access it. Something is missing. Yeah, create, access, and at the same time update array. So how do you create array? So create array. So to create array in JavaScript, we normally use const. If you know that you're not going to change that entire array again. But if you know that you can assign that variable to another thing later on, then you can use your let. But since your array is holding value, the value inside is what is going to be changed, not the array itself. So we normally use const. So you are going to have your variable name, then you are going to set it into this. This is how we create array. Once you have that square bracket there, so this one now, it knows that this thing is going to be array of, as you can see, array of anything. But right now, this is how to create empty array. So the array did not have any value at all. This is one of the simplest way of creating array. But I still other ways of creating array by using this new, but right now we don't need it. We can actually do it like this. But we don't need, you can see this is just waste of typing. This line is doing the same thing as what this two stuff is doing here. So it's just waste of typing for now. We'll just be using that one. So for example, we can have constant scores like this. And inside this scores, we have 67. So each one of the value, you separate them with commanded. But they don't need to be of the same type. It can be of different types. It can be number. You can even put one array inside another array. Array can contain function. Anything that you can think of it as a value, you can put it inside array. Array too have value on their own too. So which means you can put one array inside another array. You can put object inside array and so forth like that. Anything that you can create as a value, you can put it inside array. But right now, since we are dealing with scores, no, scores are just number. But you can put anything you want. If I want, I can just put whatever I want. It will still accept it like that. But I'm just going to put array of scores. So 90, 34, 81, 56, 43, 45, 67, and so forth like that, depending on whatever the data you are dealing with. For example, you have a list of students. So that list of students, you want to put them on the screen. We have the way of talking to array that. So these are the lists. So start going each one of them, like go through each one of them and start putting it on the screen. Not that you be the one that will start doing it one by one. And that's why I said this array is very important. Because when you have a list of students, like thousands of lists or hundreds of lists, not you be the one that will be going to the screen one by one to be updating them. No, you talk to like loop through the array, and that's why I talked about looping. I put looping here, but we skip it because we don't need it right now. So looping always comes in when you are dealing with array because you have a list of data and you want to go through them one by one, but not you be doing it yourself. It's going to go over each one of them, and that's what we call loop. It will keep going over, starting from the beginning or where you want it to start from, all the way to the end, and it will carry out action on top of each one of them like that. But for now, we just want to see how to create array, which is something that we just did now. So we have our variable and we call it scores like that. And here now we are assigning these values. So we have array, but inside that array, it have different elements like that. So, and anytime you want to access your array and you just call the name, it's not going to just give you one of the value. It will give you all of them. As you can see right now, it told us that we have 9 items. And if I expand this thing now, once I expand this thing, you see that there's a lot of goodies that JavaScript is giving us on array. So can you see all these things? Can you see FF? F means function. So function that we just talked about now. So anytime you create array, you have all the goodies out of the box. All these goodies on array out of the box. But how does each one of them work? When we get to the time we need them, I'll be talking about it. But you don't need to start creating all this functionality again. It's already on array. Once you create your array, JavaScript already have all this functionality that you can use on them. I like that. So, but for now, we don't care about all these goodies. What we just care about is how to create it, how to access the element, or how to update the element. But once you want to manipulate the content here, then you need all those goodies later on, which are method. Because function defined on object are method. And I told you array too is object. It's just a special kind of object that is created for us by JavaScript. Because you are going to be, grouping things a lot together. So instead of you now recreating that functionality every time you need it, it's already part of the JavaScript. Just call it anytime you need it by using this square bracket. And whatever you put inside it, they are the elements of the array. And you separate each one of them by comma there. So this is the first one, this is the second one, all the way to the end of the list like that. All right, so as you can see, it's printing out everything, but that's not what we want. We want to be able to pick any of the items that is inside the list or that is inside the array. In order for you to do that, you need to know what is called index. You need to know the difference between index and position. So what you are used to is position, but here you need to understand the concept of index. And when you're talking about index, this one is just telling you that counting starts from 0. So not your normal counting that you say 1, 2, 3, 4. So anytime someone mention index for you, or you should access your element through index, what I'm telling you that your counting is starting from 0, not 1, because you know that when you're dealing with position, so counting, or let's just say count starts from 1. Why this one can't start from 0? So which means if you want to access this first element, this is going to be index 0. Normally the position is 1, but when you want to access it, you have to use the index, and the first element is always on index 0. So the second one is on index 1, the third one is on index 2, and so forth like that. And if you notice what is going on now, anytime you want to get index, what you just do is just to do position like this, then minus 1. So if you want to get element at position 20, you know that you have to use index 19. If you want to get element at position 30, you have to use index 29. So you always, whatever position of the element, just remove 1 from it. But we don't say it like this. What we just talk about is index. So once, but in your head, this is what you'll be doing. So you find a position, then you just remove 1 from it. That is going to give you the index. And if it is the same position too that you want like that, so position is just the opposite of it like that. So if you want to know the position of, you already have an index and you want to know the position, just add 1 to it, then to give you the position. But what you always use is the index of the elements to access the array. And when you want to access the individual, so individual item from the array like that, so what you do is to, I did not send you, you don't come again. So to access individual element, you are going to use your array name. What I'm calling name is your, what you use there, as you can see, the variable name. Then followed by this square bracket. Inside it, you are going to pass the index of the element you're looking for. So this is how you can work with the individual element. The same thing too if you want to change it. So maybe you want to modify the individual item like that. The same way you access it, that's the same way you modify it. So here it's going to be array name, the index, but you want to modify it, then you just set it to whatever value you want to change it to like that. This one will always give you everything. But if you don't need everything like this, what we can just do is just to use our dash scores, then open the square bracket, then pass the index of the element. So if you want to get this 90 now, that's a 0, 1, 2. Like that. Or if you know the position, just minus 1 from it. But we always count from 0. We don't even think of position here. We always count from 0. Once you are dealing with array, just forget about position. Always work with index. Like that. So if I put 0 here now, it's going to give us the first element that we have in the list. And if I want to access that one now, if I pass 2, not that it will give you the element at position 2, it will give the element as position 3, because you know that position is the same as index plus 1. Whatever you pass here, just add 1 to it to get a position. But we don't, just like what I mentioned, we don't think in position, we think in index. So this one will give you the element at index 2, not that you will say position 3. You always mention index. But we know that it's going to be position 3, but here we don't mention position, we talked about index. So you want to get element at index 2, you want to get element at index 3, you want to get element at index this thing. So if you are same position, they will just be looking at you that this person is just JJC, or you don't know what you are doing. So as you can see now, we have the value like that, and the last element is always n minus 1. So n is the total number of elements that is there. As you can see, the total number of element here is 9. So if you want to get the last one, it will just be 9 minus 1, which is going to be 8. So if your element is 30, then the last element is 29. The index is what we are going to use to get. So if I want to get the last element now, I just need to pass 8. That one, if your array did not change, because you can actually change the array, you can add to the list and you can remove from the list. That's the reason why I said that this thing comes with goodies that you're going to be using later on. So if you want to remove from the stuff, we have pop. If you want to add to the list, we have push. But for now, we don't care about that. So we are working with what we defined at the top there. So save now. You see that it's going to give us the last element. Why is the last element and the first element the same thing? So let me just use 60 so that we know that it's different. As you can see, it's giving us like that. Again, if you want to modify, so yeah, we just need to do score. Maybe the first score, it was wrong, so we want to change it to something else. So this is going to be, normally we're supposed to type 76, but what you put here is 67. So to modify that value, just call it like your normal variable. The difference between it and variable is just that the one we are putting here, because you need to specify the side. If you don't put this in, what you are saying is you want to change the entire scores, like you want to remove everything here and replace it with 70s. But this thing will not agree because we use const here. But assuming we do not use const, it will just remove everything and replace it with this 76. But if you want to change the value in the array, you have to put the index of the value that you want to modify, and it's going to change it for you there. So yeah, now once I save, and you can expand it if you want. As you can see, it has updated the value, but uh, that's not the way it is. So you can just quickly console log out the entire score again. The first time it is 67, but after we modify the first one, as you can see here now, it's down 76 like that, and that's how this thing works like that. So it make it you can modify the value, you can create your array, and you can replace any of the value at that index. So this is where we're stopping. In the next class now, I'll be talking about objects. Then from there, we'll be able to move into, so from here now, we start working with how to get content from the page into our
So now
JavaScript.
talk about the update is about push and pop, right?
No, no, no. The update is, can you see here? It was, the first one was 67, but now we've changed it to 76. That's just update. You are updating. It just means you are assigning. Can you see that you, what is there before is not what is there. You update the value. Like that. Those one is when you want to add to the list or you want to remove. You are not update. You are, we update. No, this one I will only update a particular value. As you can see, modify individual item, not the entire array. So the push used to modify the entire, because it's to add to the end of it, while the pop we remove from the end of it. But here now we are changing only one value from the list. So that's how you be. But that one now, you don't talk about index, you are talking about the entire list. You are adding to it or you are removing from the entire list. But this one, you're only modifying individual stuff like that. All this thing, that's why we want to get here, so that we start putting them into real use on the page like that. I say a lot of things to talk about, but these are just the basic stuff first that we need, then every other thing can comes in. Just like what I mentioned here, there's a lot of things you can do with array, as you can see them are like this, but we don't need it right now. When we started working with the page, then it will make sense at that place than just using normal JavaScript, because we are not dealing with backend. But this experience you are going to have is what you can take to the backend and start working with it, because you'll be dealing with array there too, and all this thing will be used like that. So that's just it. Let me stop